Hey guys, and yeah, it's awesome to see you all here again this year. And my name is Ingus. I'm a technical support engineer, trainer, and consultant here at Zabbix. And today I am going to tell about the cool new features of newly released Zabbix 3.4. Now, a quick question: how many of you have tried 3.4? Have seen 3.4? A few, but still quite many people have not seen that. And yeah, I'm going to tell what is done there. So, what do we have as of today? Quick recap of the versions. We do have LTS versions, few of them. All good 2.0 out of support already. We have 2.2 still supported, all good. We still did see this one today. So 2.4 also out of support. Then we have 3.0, 3.2, and now the new 3.4. What does it mean supported till some date? That means this branch of Zabbix will receive security updates till that date. What about the 4.0? Well, Alexei already mentioned that in his talk that, well, expected Q1 next year. So, fingers crossed. But now, let's see what we have in 3.4. Now, let's start with the visualization. When we open the web interface of 3.4, well, it looks, well, kind of the same. You have the same menus, they are in the same places. You might recognize everything. But the dashboards have now been redesigned a lot. Instead of fixed set of elements which you have on the dashboard, now you can have as many elements you want on the dashboard, and of different types. You can have the problems view, you can have maps, graphs of different kinds. So kind of the functionality of screens is now brought to the dashboards. Also, you can have now multiple dashboards. So previously only you had one dashboard and then you could switch to screens or maps. So now this all can be done there on the dashboard, and each user can have their own dashboards. Also, the sharing features are taken from screens and maps. We know that already, and you can limit the access to your dashboards to limited users. Also, you can clone dashboards, screens, and maps now in the new version. As for the widgets which you can add, different types of views about the problems, about the triggers, favorite menus, maps, that's the new thing, graphs. This is all now on the dashboard. You can even show a URL. You can watch a YouTube video on the dashboard. How cool is that? And for the filtering, you see lots of new filtering options have been added to the widgets. So, for example, for the problem view, you can have multiple problem views on your dashboard, filtering by host groups and or hosts or different other criteria. And then the cloning and sharing features are also there in a few new buttons which you see on the dashboard. Maps are also improved a lot. Now they are in vector graphics. You can scale maps easily. Alexei also in his presentation did show a nice sneak peek of how the movements are done now. Also, when you put the maps on the dashboard, you can resize the dashboard elements, and the maps now very nicely do resize. Plus all the ability to copy elements on the maps. Plus, well, different other views there, multi-layer maps, new menus for the maps. So also previously, when if you were a limited user, and if there was a map which did contain elements which you were not allowed to see due to Zabbix permissions, you didn't see the map at all. Well, now you can, because there is a functionality which shows an element, a grayed out element on the map. You can't see the name, you can't see what this element is, but you see that there is something. And yet you still see the map. So if you have created a nice map and you want to show this to your limited users as well, but at the same time hide your customer info or something, now this is possible. And yeah, as mentioned, full cloning feature is new, because previously when you wanted to clone a map, there was a clone button, but that did allow you to clone only the map properties, but not the map elements. The actual map was not cloned. Now it is with the full clone button. Of course, visualization is not the only new thing. Lots of new things are done regarding the data collection and pre-processing. Let's start with the item keys that we have for the Zabbix agent. Now with the agent you can monitor the size of the directory on the file system, supported both on Linux and Windows, and you can specify which directory you want to monitor, a regular expression to include certain files or names, to also regex to exclude something, mode, apparent or the resize on the disk, and max depth, how many directories deep you want this check to go. Because, well, take caution, because if you run this, say, on a root directory, it will try to go down inside and get the size of all directories underneath it. It takes time, and probably that's not what you want. So max depth is for that. Also, a minor thing, but if you're monitoring the number of processes running, the procnum item key has also received 2 new states, disk and trace. Well, all others, all run, sleep, and zombie, those were in the previous versions as well. You probably know there are such a thing called internal items. What are they? They do monitor things in Zabbix itself, like how busy the processes are, how full the caches are, and so on. Now, you can do a low-level discovery for interfaces on a host configured in Zabbix. It's not like a LOD of the interfaces on the remote agent you're monitoring. No, in Zabbix agent, in the host configuration, if you know, you can have multiple interfaces there for your hosts. And now you can do a low-level discovery of them and say create a ping item on each of the interfaces. Previously, you had to do this manually if you wanted to. Now this can be automated with the internal LOD. And there are a few new internal processes added into Zabbix, and of course we need internal items for them as well. One of them is also the preprocessing queue, which is very useful for the new pre-processing features. And what are they? So Alex already mentioned how this works a little bit. So now, what do we see here? When you open the items on a template or any host, the item configuration looks kind of the same, or is it? You have now a new tab called pre-processing on the menu, and there, first thing which is moved there is, well, the custom multiplier. You probably recognize this from the old versions already. Then change per second. This is what was formerly called delta, speed per second. So those are the preprocessing options. But, well, what we have there are new things. For example, you can have JSON path, regular expression, conversion hexadecimal to decimal. So all these options are available now in the preprocessing section. So this is particularly useful when you receive large fragments of structured or even unstructured data, and you want to get some smaller parts of the data out of this big fragment of text. and you want to send these values to specific items. That is where it is very, very useful. And then how to tell this? So if you receive a JSON code, for example, you can specify a JSON path, which element from the JSON should go to this item. You can use a regular expression. If you receive hex values, you can convert it to the decimal values. Also, very, very, very powerful thing is the XML path if you are receiving data in XML format. So now all this data can be converted also using these XParse functions. If you so other options, if you receive, for example, data in so 12C for monitoring temperature. The 12C is not exactly numeric data, so it's text. You can do write stream and take away the C and get the temperature of 12, which is a numeric value. If you receive JSON, you can do JSON processing and get this value nicely again as an integer. When receiving larger text fragments, you can use regular expressions to then go make these values to go to specific items of specific types. If you want to know more about the preprocessing, there will be an awesome workshop tomorrow morning. So make sure you also apply for the workshop. So if this is something you're interested, check that track. Now, but the next thing is the mass processing option. So how does this all come together? There are things which you wish to monitor, like what you see on the screen is MySQL internal metrics. There are about 300 to 400 of them. And yes, there are templates out there which does monitor all of them. Yes, they usually do rely on Zabbix agents user parameters. So far, so good. But when you run these templates, then the user parameters are executed, well, once every, whatever, 60 seconds. And then imagine if you have like 400 parameters. Inside, in a time frame of 60 seconds, you can have 400 connections to the database, which I might assume is not very healthy to the database. And you're not getting the values at the same time moment. So now what you can do, you can configure an item with whichever type which gets this output. This is show global stats from MySQL. It gets it all. You store it as a text item and send it to Zabbix server. Not necessarily you need to keep the history of all of this, but then you use a new item type called dependent item. And well, you give it a nice name, you give it a nice key, free format key name. You probably know this already from other items where you can make your own key names. And then this is new, master item. So you point this dependent item to go to this master item which collects those all metrics, and then you use the preprocessing options. So for instance, you use a regular expression, get the uptime. So you're interested in the uptime. So you make it look for the uptime string in the output, and use regular expression, use a capturing group, and output the first capturing group with the value. And so as many times you can do this. How often is the dependent item updated? It is updated every time the master item gets a new value. And yes, then it's your choice whether you keep the history of the master item or not keep. That's up to you. You can set the history to 0, and then it's just shown away immediately. Otherwise, it's kept in the database. So then, Zabbix is also a heavily community-driven project, and really thanks to all the active community members, for contributing to Zabbix, making also us to develop new features. And we have a support system where you can ask for these features, and you can also vote. So because of these votes, we have implemented now some of the top voted features. And one of them is really a great thing now. Remote commands, which previously could be run only on the Zabbix agents if they are monitored by Zabbix server directly, so now they can be executed also if the host is monitored via a proxy. So proxy now fully forwards the remote commands, either in actions or in front-end scripts. Yeah, works like a charm. You need to you also can enable the proxy to execute remote commands in the actions. So you can choose which component runs, let's say a custom script, whether server or proxy or the agent. This works both for the custom scripts executed on the agent. Also, if you do SSH commands, they are also executed by the proxy that monitors the host. So it is a great functionality. So make sure you use it. If you do Java monitoring, then now configurable JMX endpoints can be set here for the JMX items. You have a new field JMX endpoint. Previously it was fixed. Now you can set a customizable endpoints, and well, this enables you to monitor more Java applications. Also, JMX low-level discovery is officially introduced in the new version. So you can discover all the JMX beans, all the attributes, retrieve all garbage collectors. So if Java monitoring is your thing, check out the documentation. Documentation always it's your friend, tells you how to do things, so check it out. And other feature, again from the top voted ones, notifications on problem acknowledgement. So when a problem occurs, you can click and acknowledge and say, yes, well, you are working on this, and yeah. Previously, you could see the acknowledgement only in the web interface, really. Now, you can configure Zabbix to also send a message when someone acknowledges an event. So, yeah, acknowledgement operations. So with every Zabbix release, we introduce something new. So in 3.2, we had the recovery operations as a new thing. Now, acknowledgement operations. So what comes in 4.0? Well, we'll see. Also, the default messages which you have in the actions have been redesigned, improved. So check now the layout of the messages. Of course, still you can customize them to match your own preferences. Of course, you are all interested in the new features, and then you probably think that when a new version comes out, you will see the new features. Some of the features cannot be seen directly. Lots of things are done under the hood of Zabbix regarding the performance and also scalability. And if we talk about the server-side performance, then very major improvement is done on the configuration cache. What is configuration cache? It is a shared memory which stores the configuration of all the hosts, items, triggers, all things that you monitor. Zabbix has to acquire all this information from the database. And then previously Zabbix did log the configuration cache completely, and well, by default 60 seconds refreshed the configuration on the server side. It did take a lot of time on larger installations, yeah, performance with performance in mind, we did redesign this functionality. So now the configuration update is basically incremental, and you update only the changes in the cache. Still, of course, the requests go to the database. You get all the queries about the items, triggers, and so on. But the cache locking is now reduced from, well, 6 to 8 seconds, as you see in the graph, to milliseconds. That's an awesome improvement. Also, the protocol, how servers and proxies do communicate, is improved. So now proxies do use less connections and more persistent connections and send more data to the servers. Again, good for larger installations if the proxies monitor lots of data. New thing is also that you can have multiple alerters now. What was the problem previously? There was a single alerter process which did send the notifications, whether emails or SMS messages or whatnot. If you did have slower media types, this did take quite some time. And imagine if you have a large net outage and lots of hosts go down, and then you have to alert like 1,100 people. So, well, alerter was very, very busy and probably could not keep up with the task. So now you can have even up to 100 alerters configured. And in the media types, you can configure how many concurrent sessions you do for executing this particular media type. So how many alerter processes you utilize, how many attempts you do. If the first one, second one, third one fails, and the interval between attempts. So now this can be configured in the web interface. There's a new tab for the media types configuration window. When you do the monitoring, many times you want that things just happen automatically, like out of the box. And yeah, now we have also done great improvements there with lots of new out-of-the-box templates. Particularly for different vendors of network devices, you will find templates there. You will see those templates if you are doing a fresh install of 3.4. The templates will be there. If you are doing the upgrade, the templates will not be imported automatically. You have to go to share.zabbix.com, look for official templates, and then look for the devices which you're using and import the templates into the new Zabbix. But yeah, they are all there, using all the new functionalities of Zabbix. Lots of macros, lots of customization options to fit your needs. All the variables, all the parts which you might want to be flexible, they are made flexible with macros, so you don't have to deal with large mass update operations. So just change the values of the macros. It's very, very flexible. And well, expected in the new versions of Zabbix, so we trying to extend this functionality, include even more templates, even more possibilities out of the box. Some other major improvements. Oh, this is a nice one. The problem in older versions was that Zabbix web interface did use parallel-compatible regular expressions, but the Zabbix server did use POSIX extended. And they did not work very well together at some times. So now this thing is fixed once and for all, because both of these components, so frontend and the Zabbix server, use parallel-compatible regular expressions. So now you can type the more complex expressions. They have more features. Just when, if you're doing upgrade and you have POSIX extended expressions in your Zabbix, check whether they yield the same results after the upgrade, because they might be some minor differences. But still, it is a great thing to have now. If you are doing web monitoring with Zabbix, we have improved the web scenario steps. And of course, it's all fine when you just monitor a single URL. It's not a big deal. But if you run more complex web scenarios, querying different fields from your site, posting different variables, getting different headers. So now you can URL encode all these values, and yeah, you have nice configurable fields which you can fill in, and then they are passed to the website. Of course, you can still click the raw data and send the values in the old good format. But yeah, check out these new things for the web monitoring. Another great thing actually, and simplifies the management of monitoring a lot, is that now time periods, wherever you can configure them for the update interval of the items, for the time periods, let's say the working time, in flexible intervals on the graphs, they do support user macros, and this gives great flexibility. So now, whenever you have to can specify a time period, you can give it as a macro. So, for example, you can give a macro user macro every morning, H10. This will be useful in the scheduling intervals. Another macro, working time. Well, you can name them as you want, and give this syntax of the working time. Now, where can we use this? In, for example, the item configuration form. When configuring custom intervals, say the scheduling interval, no, this is the flexible one, interval 1M. By the way, also a new thing, update intervals now support suffixes instead of just pure number of raw number of seconds. So now human readable intervals can be used here along with the macros, say working time. And, well, every morning macro you can use in the scheduling one. And what's this? The update interval. Now it also can contain a macro. And this is not a simple macro. This is a user macro with a context from a low-level discovery rule. So now you can define that when monitoring, let's say, file systems, you can have a different update interval for each file system that you monitor. And you can change this very easily with the help of user macros. And if you want to do again large-scale configuration changes, it is just done easily on the let's say template level. That's one value, updates very quickly, has great effect. And also these macros can be used, for example, in the actions. Actions can also be specified in say working time. Time period in working time, so you can use the value from a global macro. Imagine if your country also decides to have a 5-hour working day, then it's a very easy change to make. Otherwise, well, it's quite complex to change these fields in all the possible places. And yeah, some other things I would like to list. Event tags, they were introduced in Zabbix 3.2 for more flexible, well, for event correlation purposes. Now you can also use new host macros in the event tags, so all the host name, host con, etc. tag can be used in the event tags for even more flexible correlation options. Just to mention this one, we have dropped support for Internet Explorer older versions, 9 and 10. So, this comes along with another great improvement. Previously, when viewing different, particularly forms with different browsers, you might see, well, a bit different layouts. So the buttons shifted here and there, and so now we have unified the experience across all the browsers. So regardless of the browser you're using, the forms and everything should look identical. Another new thing, increased field size for various things. Well, when configuring features, we think that we thought that it will be enough with 255 charts for the SNMP OID. Apparently, it is not, because you guys have found even longer OIDs. So we had to increase this to 512. Now, well, good luck with finding an OID that long. Also, flexible update interval period is increased from 255 to 2024, and also media types, when active, also are now, the fields are longer now. If you're doing Java monitoring, you'll be happy to know that support for the atomic boolean, atomic integer, and atomic long data types have been added. And if you do IPMI monitoring directly from Zabbix, now IPMI is also redesigned a lot with performance in mind. Now the IPMI, there's a new IPMI manager process which schedules the checks and manages how Zabbix connects to the mounted devices. Because previously, well, with those particularly slow responding devices, you might have conflicts with the data you're gathering. The device responds, then another poller requests the same information. Now this is being fixed with this new IPMI manager process, and also the mounted devices should feel more happy about the things you're doing. Low-level discovery has received a few improvements. That low-level discovery macros can now be used in function parameters of trigger prototypes, also in correlation in the tags, and in graph prototype names. If you do, if you run remote commands, then also a new great thing is that Zabbix respects and returns the error code if the script failed. If it run with error code with return code other than 0, which is okay, and gives you more detailed error messages for user parameters, remote commands, and system run item keys. And the default data retention periods have been reduced for internal items. So previously you had 365 days for internal data, network discovery data, and auto registration. Now, well, these events are not used anymore after they really occurred. But still, we were storing this by default for a year inside the events table. Now, this is not very useful, so we have reduced these defaults, and also it is kind of considered safe to gradually decrease these periods. If you have existing installations, you can reduce these and let the housekeeper slowly delete the data for you. So that is pretty much it about the new features. So if you want to use them, download the Zabbix sources or download the Zabbix packages, update the whole thing, update the web interface, update the server, the proxies. Make sure you check the Zabbix server log at the same time when you do the database upgrade, because in the log you might see some messages about the upgrade procedure. Also don't forget to clear the cache of your browser to apply the new CSS files, and should be it. So I do hope you do enjoy all the features, the full list in the documentation, and yeah, thank you so much. Now, do you have any questions?
Hi, I have a few questions. First, what about disk usage checks? If we need more rights to check directory, what we will have in the end if some Zabbix user can't measure disk usage on a host?
If I understand this functionality correctly, then so the checks are executed with the permissions of the Zabbix agent, and the return size is what the agent user can see. So not the root.
But we can configure disk usage check in user parameter using sudo. And we did that before those checks you implemented recently. But how can we do it with sudo right now? Do we need to add more rights to Zabbix user? It's not so secure as to deploy some sudo file for Zabbix user, I think.
See the thing here. Very often we have been requested to monitor things on the let's say operating systems which do require elevated permissions. And then the users require us to, well, say, hey guys, well, why can't Zabbix access this data? Why do Zabbix needs elevated permissions? Why can't Zabbix log into my website and monitor the data? Now imagine if, well, still Zabbix operates on an operating system level and respects the permissions. Imagine what kind of hacking tool would that be if we would just override all the OS level permissions. And yeah, so in your case, I do assume you need to still elevate the permissions also for the Zabbix agent in order to monitor the directories which yeah, require special permissions.
Okay, second question. You showed us item value preprocessing screen, and we have a list on the right side with
all the options.
Yeah, but do we need to click on all of those options to add those pre-processing things?
You just, so it depends on what pre-processing do you need.
What if we need all of them?
Yes, then you need to add all, well, if you need all of them, to process a value from one incoming item, whether that's, I don't know, JSON code or whatever that would be, then yes, you can manually, and you have to manually add all those steps to pre-process the value. So yes, if you want to use a combination of regex, JSON, trim, hex to deths, and so on, if you need all those steps, then yes, you have to add them.
But in previous versions, we have simple window with clicking on that page. We didn't need to open that list and click on all of the types of pre-processing. I think it's more clicking than before.
There are more features than before. Besides, you can have multiple options here. So it's not like just you can have one option of the regular expression. You can have multiple processings there, and then when you create such a list, then well, we have to make decisions how to make the user experience better. But this is how it's implemented. Just because to give you more functions.
Okay, good point. And one last question. What about master items? We can use them for multiple items, but we don't need to store them for even 1 day because it's not actual after 1 minute of getting data. How can we remove history of that master item? Because it's too huge to store in...
Very good question. This is handled very easily. When in the history storage period, you just set 0.
Okay, thank you.
And the item will be kept in the cache. When you view the latest data page, in this case, then in the latest data you don't have the history link on the right side of the page for an item which has the history set to 0.
Okay, thank you.
And it is removed immediately, or if you don't need it for, if you still want to see it, then the minimum housekeeper value is now 1 hour.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just a second. Okay, so Slido first. Sorry, guys.
Yes, we have a lot of questions on the Slido, and actually more than 10 of them are about item pre-processing. So I could answer right now that please visit the workshop tomorrow morning, and we'll talk about all of that stuff exactly in that workshop. And back to the other questions.
And you're the guy to ask.
Yeah, and I will be the guy who will teach you that stuff. About the other questions, I just must read this because it has 12 votes on it. So, did you plan to create own mobile application for the Zabbix?
I am not currently aware of such plans. Maybe Alexei has something to say about this, but I won't be able to comment on this one. Do we have this planned?
Well, actually, I'd love to have an official application from Zabbix for mobile platform like iOS and Android. We don't have any particular plans at the moment. I think the reason why we don't have those particular plans is because it's a little bit kind of a different technology to develop those types of applications, and we at this moment we don't have such an in-house experience, right? So this is the only reason, but obviously it would be nice to have something supported officially. Oh yeah, that's obviously, yeah, this is kind of a workaround, so that we would have a web interface. We would work the same way, not exactly the same way, but it would scale nicely for the mobile application. Yeah, this is what we are considering to do. Yeah, especially the dashboard part. It needs to be done so that it looks nice on the mobile phones.
And the next question from Slido. Sorry. Did Maps functionality support integration with Google Maps API or Yandex Maps or
No.
Here Maps?
No, currently not.
Yes, you said that you have implemented host macro in the event tags. And what about the inventory macros?
Inventory macros in the event tags, no, I'm afraid they're not supported at this very moment. But what's the feature request?
You forgot at that?
Well, there is, I don't know what's exact policy behind implementing. Probably, well, it's up to developers, I think. We could possibly support all the macros in all the places. There's the technical difficulty behind this, or well, we could, but yeah, it's I'm afraid it's currently not possible. So.
Hello. It's nice to see that Zabbix started just taking care of sampling on a one go. Multiple values for just items. However, I have some kind of a slight change which will make this type of queries completely transparent, and because this approach is good, but it puts some kind of a responsibility of someone who is preparing just a template. Let's say if you will put MySQL item, and in a table when you have just a function in a C code which is obtaining MySQL, data, MySQL as a name of the item, and if I remember correctly, in a third column is something like some sample data, sample value of this key. Let's extend this table by add yet another column with another function which will be able to obtain multiple values for exact this key. So, for example, if you have a multiple VFS free queries across many file systems, yeah, it will be have exactly the same set of items, but when those metadata about monitoring configuration will come to the agent will sample choose. Aha, I have a multiple queries for free space on a multiple file system, and I have a function for obtain multiple values. Okay, so I can open in a proc file exact file and take those files. And everything could be done without any kind of a changes in a web frontend. The same could be done in a MySQL. I see some kind of a risky thing, because when you are, for example, sampling a lot of data from MySQL or from a JVM, you are effectively freezing a lot of internal structures, which is locking many things inside of just the Zabbix. In a JVM or, for example, in a MySQL. If it will be possible to shorten each query, for example, for items sampled for 5 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 1 hour, and just schedule sampling different, type of those items. Again, it will be not necessary to put those, master item definition in a web frontend. It would be possible to hide everything on just a C code, I think.
Well,
maybe I should try to discuss with, with Alexia after this, to pass a little better, because I've been thinking quite a long time about the same kind of idea. But it's another kind of a solution without this kind of a responsibility of defining this master item. That's only another approach. That's all.
What you're saying, of course, makes sense. There's a good thought about this, but currently the implementation of the master items and dependent items is a little bit different. Still, in the master item, you define exactly what data you are requesting. It's a trivial example what we did show you on the slide, that you just get all the show global status. Yeah, but you can use more granular filtering. You can, but still, take this this query. You're still sending this data to the Zabbix server, and take this as a text fragment you still see on the SSH window. And then you have to kind of use either regular expressions, streams, or whatever functions there is in the preprocessing to get this very exact value. It works. I get your point, but this currently works in a kind of different way.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this vital discussion. Thank you for your questions.